The next session's chairperson is Dr. Ganga Mahto, who has been teaching English language and literature to postgraduate and graduate students as an assistant professor English in Ansart, Rai, Bhopal since 2019. He also worked as an assistant professor English in YN, Dihwara, Saran from 2017 to 2019. He has taught English to senior secondary students as postgraduate teacher of English in Kandriya Vidyalaya Sangathan from 2009 to 2017. He has received his professional qualification to teach English B.Ed English from the English and Foreign Languages University EFLU Hyderabad in July 2009. He has also been trained in the Language Laboratory in EFL University, Hyderabad. During his training to teach English as a second language and practicing the same with his students. Besides, he has also done research PhD in English on regionalism in the major works of R.K. Narayan. He qualified National Eligibility Test NET in 2013 and State Level Eligibility Test Jharkhand in 2007. He has presented more than 20 papers in various seminars and conferences. He has also published many research papers in ELT in reputed journals in India and abroad. Currently, he is working on the impact of social media in human language. So now I would like to request Dr. Mahto to chair the technical session of paper presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Shafin. Am I audible? Just
yes,
a brief audio check. Yeah. Thank you very much. I would like to grab the opportunity in the beginning itself to thank the organizer who asked me to chair the session, and I'm really looking forward to listen to the presenters and maybe looking forward also to learn a few things from them. Of course, my area is English language teaching, and I'm more into now research in English language and ELT. But then I did my PhD in literature, so I know literature, a bit of them. If I cannot know all the theories and all, I can know a bit on literature and maybe give you a feedback on that. But then moreover, my area of expertise is ELT. So with that, let me proceed with the sessions, and without wasting time, we are already 20 minutes delayed. I request our presenters to please look at the time, maintain the time of 10 minutes, which is allotted to every presenter. So maybe you can try to wind up once you are at 8th or 9th minute, so that by 10th minute you should be able to conclude the time allotted to you for paper presentation. So can I proceed with the first presenter, Parvati MS. She is a PhD scholar, Department of English Literature, the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. The title of her paper is Negotiation of Gender Identities and Performativity in Pramod Raman's Works. May I request Ms. Parvati MS to unmute and start.
Hello, sir.
Yes, you're audible. Go ahead. Yeah.
So,
some background noise is there, Parvati. Before you move further, there is some background noise.
Sorry, sir.
Maybe
it's
either
outside.
Okay, it's raining. We cannot control that. Continue.
Okay. Sir, is it okay now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. Sir, good afternoon, sir. My paper is titled Negotiation of Gender Identities and Performativity in Pramod Raman's Works. So Pramod Raman is this Malayalam short fiction writer, and I'll be looking at the concept of gender in his works through the conceptual framework of Judith Butler's performativity.
Parvati, yeah, good. I'm not able to see your screen if you are presenting. Are the people able to see that? Can you just check it? I'm not able to see it.
I think you can just share the slideshow. Then it will be more visible.
I'm actually sharing my slideshow, ma'am. It's just
slideshow, but there is an option that to share the whole screen. You can find there. See?
just now go to the screen that you wish to share, and yeah, let's see. Or you move a bit because you are sharing. I know that you are presenting, but it's not visible.
Oh, okay, sir. So is it visible now?
Not yet. Can you just yeah,
It's
I
actually
don't know.
visible, sir. I think you can click on the pin to screen.
Yeah, it's visible. It's visible now. Okay, go ahead. No issue. I'll check my pinning.
Okay, sir. The conceptual framework of performativity emphasizes the processes by which we become gendered subjects within existing power structures. These processes of subject construction are embedded in linguistic and discursive structures. This anti-essentialist notion of the subject denotes that gender identity is constituted by a sequence of acts, popularly known as gender roles, which in turn constitutes the subject. In Gender Trouble, published in 1990, Judith Butler remarks that the gendered subjectivity is a process of becoming, where the subject is hailed into the heteronormative order by performing these gender roles. Performativity, in short, subverts the pervasive assumption that sex and gender are natural categories, which are performatively constituted within a heterosexual matrix of power. Pramod Raman's works examine the performative constitution of gender identity within the cultural context of Kerala, as the characters in his works negotiate their predetermined but putative gender identities. Gender identity is, as Judith Butler calls it, a free floating entity which is radically independent of sex. The characterization in Pramod Raman's short fiction is informed by the schism between sex and gender and the cultural refashioning of sex as gender. The work titled Sabum Sagarude Pattu Padavagal, which is mostly like can be roughly translated as the 10 steps of a lover, begins with a conversation between two men who are lovers, where they are just telling each other that I am the boy, you are the girl. And the other lover corrects him saying, no, I am the boy, you are the girl. So these men, the lovers in question, are named Nathan and Tara, and they frequently slip in and out of their predetermined gender roles. They engage in acts deemed as feminine in fashioning their identity and therefore appropriate what society deems as feminine. Another work titled Chedamsha Jeevitham, which will again roughly translate as Life After Castration, continues with this theme of performative gender roles, where Manjit, a young Malayali male living in Chennai, refashions himself as Manju, a woman. The woman, Manju, hails her gender identity into being through repeating feminine modes of self presentation, like dressing up as in traditional modes of femininity, like in women's clothes, like wearing makeup and donning feminine hairstyles. So, the character Manju performs these gender roles to the extent that she undergoes sex transformation surgery. Manju considers his gender roles as mere costumes and compares the days leading to the surgery, the sex transformation surgery, as days of genderless nudity, quote unquote, after which he changes into the new set of clothes, which is femininity. The sartorial metaphor for gender recurs throughout Pramod Raman's works, even as Manju remarks that when his friends ask him about informing his parents about her sex transformation surgery, she answers that my parents do not own my gender. My gender is merely a piece of information for them, unquote. The negotiation of gender roles extend to the presentation of women characters as well. Characters like Redhi in Redhimadavinte Putran, translated as Mother Redhi's son, and the character Neha in Life After Castration are frequently positioned outside traditionalist notions of femininity amidst overwhelmingly masculine public spaces like liquor bars and smoking rooms. In spite of the construction of gendered subjectivities as fluid, they are positioned within the heteronormative order. Within this order, gender identities are fashioned as arbitrarily sartorial choices, but then the characters always subscribe to the heterosexual matrix of power. In The Lover's 10 Steps, Tara's appropriation of femininity is accompanied by Tara's appropriation of femininity is accompanied by Nathan's portrayal in modes of aggressive masculinity. Nathan insists on Tara's femininity in order to validate his sexual attraction for Tara. Though they could be conventionally deemed as homosexual couple, uh, calling himself as homosexual is something Nathan cannot tolerate. So he or he fashions Tara in a feminine mode so that he will feel comfortable with his sexuality, so that he feels that he still remains a heterosexual though he is attracted to a man. Nathan insists on Tara's femininity in order to validate his sexual attraction for Tara. This problematic representation of heterosexual relationships is repeated in Chedansha Life After Castration, where Manju's decision to undergo sex transformation is prompted by Chandran's declaration of his love for Manju, while simultaneously stating that he is not gay. So in Chedansha Chandran, the male character, actually falls in love with Manju or Manjit, and then says that I love you, but then he says that, but then he's not gay. So he actually pushes Manju to take the sex transformation surgery in a way, so that he again, like Nathan, feels comfortable in his sexuality and still doesn't move outside the norms of heterosexuality, or what Adrian Rich calls compulsory heterosexuality. The ideology of heterosexuality plays out in Manju's attraction for Neha as well. Because after Manju undergoes his sex transformation and becomes a woman, she gets attracted to Neha after Manju's sex transformation, as Manju declares her love for Neha and then urging Neha to undergo sex transformation into a man, so that again Manju will feel validated and consider herself as heterosexual who falls for a man rather than a woman. So these plots are all very confusing because of because of the writer's insistence to subscribe to these heterosexual norms even. In the work titled Radimadavante Putran or Mother Radi's son, Jeevan, the male character, is coerced into performing his heterosexual masculinity within his marital relationship. He is literally manufacturing his heterosexual desire. He is actually a homosexual who enters into a marriage of convenience with the female character Reddy. And then, in order to perform his masculinity, in conventional terms, he is made to take some medicines of dubious quality, which actually threatens his life. So, again,
Pavati, I'd like to just, Pavati, can you just conclude with your findings, whatever you found out of the.
Sure, sir. I have
concluding, yeah.
Yes, I have reached the conclusion anyway. So again, Jeevan's inability to accept himself as a homosexual actually even threatens his life. So to conclude, performativity envisions the arbitrariness of gender roles as gendered subjectivities are hailed into being through recurring performances of gender. The representation of characters in Pramod Raman's works are embedded in this anti-essentialist notion of gender and are portrayed as gender fluid. However, the cultural production of gender in these works is prominently discursive, and the gender of these characters are subjected to power relations within the heterosexual matrix of order within the Kerala culture in these works. As a result, these performances of gender, though they are gender fluid, are heteronormative and are thus imbricated in traditionalist notions of masculinity and femininity, which I found problematic, given how we are making such politically progressive notions with regard to homosexuality and gay rights. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Parvati. Without wasting time, let us take all the presentations first, and then we'll have feedbacks and questions. So I request other people, those who are in the group, if you have any question to Parvati, you can please keep a note of that, or you can type the questions in the chat box so that we can keep it, and at the end, these questions will be answered. So Parvati, be there.
Sure.
Do not leave. We have questions at the end. Okay. So I'm moving to the next presenter. Mathusha Sam Lara, PhD research scholar in Department of English and Research Center, St. John's College, Palamakotti. Her title is Capturing the Rudimentary Tenants of Epic. Mathusa, are you there? Mathusha?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, please mute, share the screen if you have any, and please present.
Okay, sir. So, epic is an extensive narrative poem expressed in a grand style, widely known as myth. Almost people from all the region have their own epics. They are either in oral form or in script form, but almost every region has one. Epics are framed in such a way that either that would be in a song format or poetry format. The ultimate goal is to convey a complete tale to the audience, be it Mahabharata of East or Iliad of West. Foretelling or soothsaying is the essence of both. The core goal is to give an idea of what is going to happen in the upcoming events. Likewise, there are certain qualities that an epic has. The paper contributes to explain some basic and main belief or a principle of an epic. The selected epics for the paper are the Mahabharata and the Iliad. Iliad is the work of Homer. It has many names and often referred as the Song of Ilion and Song of Ilium. Herodotus locates Homer at circa 850. Homer's Iliad is from a period known as the archaic period of classical antiquity. Homer's another great work is Odyssey, recites the incidents which happened after Trojan War. Iliad and Odyssey are the greatest epics and a base to pedagogy itself. The epic is about the battle between Trojans and Greeks. Even though the story covers only the last few weeks of the war scene, it manages to unfold most of the stories within. Mahabharata is one of the greatest ancient Sanskrit epics of India by sage Vyadavyasa. The epic was written during Vedic times. It is the longest epic poem in India. The epic is about a war between Kauravas and the Pandavas. Both the epics were originally framed in oral form. Joseph Farrell says about Homer, the great creator, especially of poetic language, and as the blind seer, wonders held no great honor, whose sufferings has gained him an acute understanding of the nature. He praises Homer for producing an amazing work. Both the epics has a grand style and also has their own qualities. But as for epics, there are some common and predictable qualities present like a rule. Walcott marks in his work that epic makes people think of great wars and great warriors. So people has a perception that epic means war and warrior. It is what called tenets or a quality of an epic. Every single genre has a distinct quality. A crime novel must have one murder plot or some sort of mystery. The plot related to crime or the mystery has to be solved. The writing style differs according to the author. Some authors uses light vocabularies and simple sentences, whereas some uses grand style and traditional method. But certainly, it will have a common quality. The paper focuses on the qualities of an epic, how they reveal the plot, how the characters are described, what are the basic qualities of an epic. Iliad is all about battle between Trojans and Greeks for a woman's sake named Helen. In Mahabharata, the Pandavas and the Kauravas battle for the throne of Hastinapur. but they were stimulated to battle for the humiliation caused to their partner Draupadi. The Greek epic Iliad and the Indian epic Mahabharata does have many things in common. The concept of hero worshipping is too strong that it imposed the stature of the epic. In Iliad, when Achilles declines to fight on behalf of Greeks, they start losing the war. But when he returns, he single-handedly takes the lives of hundreds and so many. Likewise, in Mahabharata, Arjuna single-handedly fought with hundreds and many with his weapon Gandiva. This gives a majestic impression on them. Achilles, he used his armor as a weapon, whereas in Arjuna, he used his weapon Gandiva. Gandiva is like a bow and arrow like thing. In both the epics, foretelling is the core technique to express or reveal the upcoming happenings. Achilles' death was foretold. Karna was cursed by Lord Parashurama. So Achilles' death was foretold when he was born. So his mother, Thetis, he took him to Zeus and asked for immortality for Achilles. So what Zeus said was, he was like, okay, your son can have immortality, but for that you need to take him to river Styx and you need to put it in the river. So what Thetis did was, she hold Achilles in his hand, but she forgot to completely put her inside the river. So throughout the body, Achilles was mortal, but in his foot, he was not immortal. He was mortal. So Karna was cursed by Lord Parashurama for tricking him to teach a war technique called Brahmastra. The curse is that he would not remember the technique when he needed it the most. Another curse was by a Brahmana for accidentally killing a cow. The curse is that his car wheel would be swallowed by the earth itself and he would be beheaded by the one whom he strives to defeat in the battlefield. So, Achilles and Karna, they both know that they would die in a battlefield, even though they knew that they went on, they kept on going, and finally they died too. Curse is the indication to Karna that he will die in a battlefield. Those two incidents were expressed earlier in the epic, even before the war scene. Achilles and Karna, they both have a peculiar commonness, that is their armor. Achilles, Karna was born with it, whereas Achilles was gifted. The presence of demigods are casual in epics. Kunti's all 6 sons' fathers are supernatural in Mahabharata. In Iliad, either the mother will be a supernatural or the father. Example, Dionysus is the son of Zeus, the god of gods, and Semele, the mortal woman. Karna from Mahabharata is the son of sun god, and Princess Kunti. The characteristics of women and men are equally portrayed in a grand style. The interventions of God plays a vital role in both. So, for example, in Iliad, Thetis asked Zeus for the victory of Trojan people in the war. So Zeus granted it. For that, Zeus gave a dream to Agamemnon that he will win the battle, even if he doesn't have Achilles' support. That led to some chaos and catastrophe later in the epic. The character in Iliad.
Mathusha, can you sum up now?
Okay,
can
sir,
you
okay.
sum up now?
Yeah, okay, sir. Sure. So in both the epics, they have many similar qualities. Like here, Karna and Achilles, they both they have many common things, be it their armor, their fighting skill, and everything. So this epic is from India and this one is from Greek, but even though they are from 2 different regions, 2 different eras, they both have some qualities. War and warriors, rage and vengeance, role of supernatural elements.
I think her voice is breaking.
I think she got
Yes.
stuck, so
Okay. Almost she was winding up. So
Power, settings
okay,
and
she's
destiny,
back.
class system and consciousness, journey and quest are the base. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Please. Wind up. You done?
Yes, sir. I'm
Okay.
done.
Okay. Thank you, Matusha. Now let us move to Matusha. Be there. We may have questions at the end. I'll also give you feedback
Sure,
at the end. Yeah, please be there.
okay. Thank you, sir.
Now, next presenter is Benedicta D. Sangama. She is an independent scholar at Deepu from Deepu, Assam. The topic for her presentation is Folklore and Gender, a feminist approach to Victoria Saxon's Progen. Uh, Benedict, are you there?
Yes, yes, sir, I'm here.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon to one and all. The title of my paper is Folklore and Gender, a feminist approach to Victoria Saxon's Frozen. Folklore and gender are interdisciplinary areas of studies in literature. Folklore are windows into the past. If we go back and look into the history of the role of women played in folklore, it is often seen that they often portray and carry the image of a beautiful damsels in distress, an evil witch, or a poor and a destitute orphan or housemaid. So it is said and perceived that the images of folklore generally seem to arise from the many tales of hurt, feeble, and suffering women. Yet, it is no simple single pattern regarding gender which emerges from a folklore. Rather, it appears to be a complex picture embracing contraries. Over the years and generation, there are mainly two major paradigms that are found across the world. One is the passive, submissive woman who is valorized, and the other is the defiant, assertive woman uh, who is looked at differently by the society. The passive woman is admired and given credibility for bearing all the pains, anguish, and sufferings. It is the passive good woman who suffers for most of the narrative span, though is restored to home and happiness at the end. The expectations from the characters are those of a patriarchal world in which the man is expected to perform great deeds and woman has a servile function. The study of folklore in general and folk tales and fairy tales in particular gives the impression that women and men are in most of the cases are not treated equally. A befitting example is the fairy tale Cinderella. Cinderella was a chambermaid who is forced to work by her stepmother. She is forced to work by her greedy and cunning stepmother. Unlike the stereotypical notions about Cinderella heroine, in Frozen, Disney seems to have paid attention to some of these gender tropes and critiques. Frozen is perhaps the most important feminist film ever made. Frozen is the 2013 animated musical fantasy film produced by Walt Disney Animation Studios and released by Walt Disney Pictures. The 53rd Disney animated feature film, it is inspired by Hans Christian Andersen's 1844 fairy tale, The Snow Queen. Frozen subverts the ubiquitous gender tropes and essentializing Frozen tropes with the aid of its main characters, Elsa and Anna, who by being rich, fair, and shockingly thin, do fit the profile of a classic Disney princess. However, unlike others, they display unparalleled agency and autonomy. Elsa and her ultimate redemption, the story is based on the themes of sisterly love, sacrifice, mistakes on part of the main character, Elsa, and her ultimate redemption at the end. In Frozen, a sister's love saves the kingdom rather than the suitor, since Anna embarks on a dangerous voyage to find Elsa, where her prodigious potential get out of hand. Unlike other Disney princes, Elsa is unique in so many ways. Elsa from the outside looks poised, regal, and reserved, but in reality, she lives in fear as she wrestles with a mighty secret. She was born with the power to create ice and snow. It is a beautiful ability, but also extremely dangerous. Haunted by the moment, her magic nearly killed her younger sister, Anna. Intimidated and impinged, she decides to leave her kingdom. Abandoning one's throne is the highest posture of treasure a sovereign can commit, and Elsa does this at the very first provocation, since she chooses her own self over her own kingdom and refuses to Elsa's ambiguous moral compass explains. Elsa displays the heroic acts by risking her own life and choosing the most difficult decision of staying and locking herself away from the people that she loves so much and this very quality of sacrifice adds to her ultimate redemption. As the story unfolds, we see bold Anna sets out all alone to search her sister Elsa, despite her fiancé Hel's pleading. It is hardly seen earlier in any of the Disney movies where a female character ventures out looking for the princess, which is the general custom of the prince or the man to go out and rescue the princess or the queen. But Anna has succeeded and defied the old traditional norms. Anna and princess or the queen, but Anna has succeeded and defied the old traditional norms. Anna and Christoph defy said gender roles and prove that gender is a spectrum and gender identification is flexible. As the story progresses, we find that Anna is more assertive and bold than her lover, Christoph. There is a reference of queer theory in the movie, with Elsa coded as the queer, originally centered on LGBT history and literary theory. The field of queer studies, which is the study of issues relating to sexual orientation and gender identity, has expanded to include the academic study of issues raised in biology, sociology, anthropology, philosophy, psychology, and other fields when examination of the identity, lives, history, and perception of queer people. Elsa is asked to conceal her magical power from the people around her by her parents. This ultimately leads her to fear, dejection, and anxiety. She feels left out. Her pain and suffering made her stronger and more powerful, and ultimately recognized her own identity and her strength of owning the unique gift, and decides to accept it the way she is born with. Some people have drawn parallels between the kingdom's rejection of the magical powers of Elsa and nowadays society's rejection of homosexuality. In order not to cause harm to her loved people, she keeps isolated and distanced from them. Many connect the film's most recognizable song, Let It Go, with experience of coming out and accepting one's sexual orientation. The song Let It Go seems progressive in breaking down traditional roles. It signifies to let go of the stereotypical attributes that society constructs to female identity. It says never to repress or conceal yourself or your true identity, because suppressing or concealing your true self can only make your life more difficult and harder to sustain. It is a strong message to accept life as it comes and let go of anything that is bitter and harmful to one's soul. Elsa also defies the virgin or the whore dichotomy, which is manifested by her in the song as she puts on a sexy outfit and stares at the camera with her raised eyebrow, giving a bold, confident, and appealing look. Her gaze is itself a note to the audiences that she is not at all ashamed of her sexuality and therefore least concerned about others' opinion. It is an indication to the audiences that she does not need their approval to prove her sexual awakening and therefore must give her space, autonomy, and liberty to choose her own identity. In doing so, Frozen defines the fetishizing of young women from the audience. Thus, Elsa challenges the norms of sexuality, comes across as a symbol of sexual empowerment. Thus, it can be concluded by saying that women protagonists in folktale can uphold traditional beliefs and shape the construction of identities. Frozen is one example of the evolution of modern films and shows a stark difference in character portrayal from its older princess movies. In the movie, both Anna and Elsa are presented as independent, skilled, and masculine characters. This is how Frozen wants to show femininity not suppressed by the male-controlled society, but a society in which women are considered as equal to men. Frozen is a fairy tale that is both didactic and entertaining at the same time. Creating female characters who are more diverse could help combat stereotypical views that exist when it comes to the critical notions of gender roles, perception of women, and queer studies. By presenting strong female leads who can stand alongside their male counterparts, can encourage the idea of equality between genders and help to build a universal acceptance of the concept of defining oneself not just by how one is born, but by his or her own actions.
Benedict, can you sum up? You were concluding,
yes,
so I
yes,
didn't
sir.
disturb you. Please, last few
Yes,
words.
yes, sir. It is very apt to quote that a world full of empowered women isn't one where men are marginalized. It is a world where everyone thrives. And with this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Benedict. After this, Benedict, be there. We will be there discussing the topic at the end with the questions if they have any. Before I proceed, may I ask those who are there, other members also, you may write questions in the chat box so that we can take up in the end together. I'm moving next to Akanksha Vasisht. She's a research scholar at K.R. Mangalam University, Gurgaon, India. The topic on which she is presenting today is exploring the reconstruction of mythical women in modern literature. Akanksha, are you there? Akanksha? No. Akanksha. Benedict, can you mute yourself?
Yes, sir.
Akanksha Vasisht, are you there? Okay, we may take her next. If she is not available, can the people say Akanksha is there? I think we are not waiting. She is not there. We are moving next to Sarita Samuel. She is Sarita Samuel, and there is a co-presenter as well, Rashmi Polijala. They are from St. Anne's College for Women, Hyderabad, Telangana. The topics on which they are going to present is the development of feminism in English literature through the 19th and 20th centuries.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you're audible.
Good evening.
Who is there by the way? Please introduce, because there are two presenters.
I'm Sarita Samuel, sir.
Sarita, can you please turn on your camera? Because
I will.
yeah, thank you.
Yes. Good evening to one and all. This is Sarita Samuel from St. Anne's College for Women. I'm presenting my screen. My paper is on the development of feminism.
Your voice is not clear.
Yeah.
Sarita, your voice is not clear. Can you?
One second.
And moreover, there is some noise coming.
Yeah, please. Please unmute. Yeah, now you speak. Yeah, Sarita, go ahead. Your mic is on now. Sarita? Yes. No. Sarita, are you using a Bluetooth? Are you using a Bluetooth? Bluetooth speakers, maybe sometimes they disconnect and they don't work well. So can you rely on the laptops or maybe mobiles audio? They may work well. Just disconnect Bluetooth and rely on that.
Sarita,
I think Sarita is not connected. Let us wait for some time because she is the only presenter left before we go to discuss. And she is there, she is trying, so we should wait for some time. Yeah. Now, Sarita,
I'm clear, sir. Am I? Okay.
Yes, very clear now.
Oh,
good.
Thank you, sir. And sorry for
Please switch on your. No, it's okay. Switch on the video if possible.
Yes, sir. I will, sir.
Yes. See, now it's very clear.
Okay, sir. Thank you. And sorry for the inconvenience again.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
it's okay.
It's okay, please. It's okay.
Yes.
I hope the screen is clear, sir.
Yes, screen is clear.
Okay.
You are not sharing, I think. Are you sharing?
Yes, I am, sir. I'm sharing.
Okay. Let me just see.
Yes,
I'm
it's
sharing.
visible.
It's clear. It's visible. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So the title of my paper is The Development of Feminism in English Literature, the 19th and 20th centuries. We begin with a brief introduction. The feminist ideology in English literature traces its roots to the late 18th century, and Mary Wollstonecraft's Vindication of the Rights of Women is considered foundational to feminism in literature. The 19th century is one of the most significant periods of British history, as it marked a new beginning for women, and the 20th century followed suit. So, throughout these centuries, literature has developed dramatically and has paved way to a golden age for women writers. At the beginning of the 19th century, women writers were largely confined to the genres of children's literature and poetry. The emotional aspect of poetry, particularly poetry in which depth of feeling and sentiment, morality, and intuition were expressed and celebrated, was considered a feminine genre suitable for women writers. As 19th century women increasingly began to write fiction, however, critical reviews of the age often derided the inferior talents of women novelists, faulting what they perceived as women's lack of worldly experience, critical judgment, and rationality. But towards the end of the century, 19th century women writers expanded their subject matter, moving beyond highlighting the lives and hardships suffered by women locked in domestic prisons. Instead, they increasingly expressed their individualism and demanded more equal partnership in marriage, in public life, law, politics, and other spheres of life on par with men. And development of feminism in English literature through the works of, I have taken a few novelists like Mary Wollstonecraft and Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte, and Margaret Atwood. So I'll just browse through my slides. When we look at Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of the Rights of Women, it was her stand against the injustices not only of women but also of men. Through her writing, she wished to become the voice that would generate participation of the natural rights of mankind, and she based her argument on the simple truth of three concepts: reason, virtue, and experience. Her main argument is that if women are not prepared by education to become the companion of man, she will stop the progress of knowledge and virtue. And she believes that the neglect of women's education has caused a great misery. She looks primarily at middle class women and considers them first as human creatures placed on this earth to unfold their faculties. And she also based the argument on the belief that reason is what makes people human and virtue is what distinguishes people from one another. So she believes that all women generally have different duties in life. They should strive for identical virtues. And then we move on to the other slide. Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre is a famous novel written by her on the basis of her own experiences. In this novel, the author portrays a tough and independent woman who pursues true love and equality. Jane Eyre is no different from any other women at that time, but she strives for her life and defends her fate in hardships and difficult situations. In Victorian period, the image of Jane Eyre reflects a sharp contrast to the patriarchal society, and she represents a woman who has the courage to fight for her own rights, and also she fights for her love. And Jane Eyre is an orphan who is ill-treated at a young age. She strives for her life and forms a tough character. She learns how to live from her childhood's environment. Also, just for her growing experiences, it creates her strong personality, beautiful ideal, and wisdom. And she's a special image out of ordinary. And Charlotte Bronte depicts Jane Eyre's image through various phases, from fighting to a poor child life, from the miserable experiences in boarding school where she comes to understand the survival of the first and of a pursuit for true love, independence, and equality. And the growth of Jane Eyre mirrors the growing up of Charlotte Bronte. Then we move on to Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. It's a novel published in 1813, and the story follows the main character, Elizabeth Bennet, as she deals with manners, upbringing, morality, education, and marriage. in the society of the landed gentry of the British Regency. Pride and Prejudice is a story of Mr. and Mrs. Bennet and their 5 unmarried daughters. They live in the estate of Longbourn in Hertfordshire, a rural district about 30 miles from London. And their property is entailed to pass to the nearest male heir in the family. And when we talk about Elizabeth, the character Elizabeth, she looks for an equal partnership in her marriage, even though she knows that it's a dependent, woman. She believes that she should have some power in the relationship. And this also reflects Wollstonecraft's view that men and women should have an equal partnership in marriage. Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own, is an essay which illustrates the history of women's literary writing in patriarchal society, where women had no room of their own and were mere victims of men's anger, misunderstanding, hostility, and exploitation. Therefore, she focuses on feminist analysis of women's literary tradition in this essay. And as it's generally believed that women are considered low and unequal to men, Woolf presents the example of Judith, a fictional sister of Shakespeare, and she tries to show that a woman with Shakespeare's talents would have been denied the opportunity to prove herself. Judith Shakespeare is remained at home to become an obedient girl, whereas her brother is being, sent to school to study. So it states that she was as imaginative to see the world as her brother was, but she was not allowed to go to school. And the character suffers a lot in the hands of her father and brothers. She has potential for genius, who is never able to write a word and ends up committing suicide because the way the society is structured against women. And then we move on to Margaret Atwood's Lady Oracle. Hope I'm clear, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, please continue.
Thank you, sir. Lady Oracle is a story of the development of a young girl or woman, Joan Foster, who at an early age rebels against the expectations that envelop her. Represented very forcefully by her mother, and she devises, various escape routes. And Joanne is discriminated against and threatened by, men. And the same thing happens in exaggerated and melodramatic form to Charlotte, the young heroine of her romantic imagination. And Joanne's husband refuses to respect and accord her equal rights, even after her novels have been published. She's treated the same. She cannot be herself, be recognized for what she is by any man. And she's expected to act in a certain way, trying to fulfill the demands of a world that in turn refuses to see her. The protagonist in the novel is a woman writer who, in order to survive, assumes many roles and guises either successfully or simultaneously, and eventually becomes an escape artist. These are the travels of a female writer in a patriarchal society. In Western male literary tradition, women are often criticized for the sin of loving their own images. Lady Oracle, Joanne clearly symbolizes the feminist writer's imprisonment in the tenets dictated by society, in which art has been the domain of men, and her quest for a new self represents the woman writer's quest for new identity as an artist, identity freed from the traditional stereotypes imposed by a patriarchal culture. The main objective of feminism is to improve the status of women by providing equal opportunity and dignity on par with men, and the writers who were influenced by the feminist ideology involved themselves in expressing their ideas through their writings, which has led to the development of feminist literature.
Okay, thank you, Sarita.
Thank
is
you,
Rashmi
sir.
also connected? Is Rashmi also connected?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sarita. So this was all. I'd like to just check whether this person, Akanksha Vasist, is still there. Akanksha Vasist is there, because she could not be there. She was not there at that time. So Akanksha, are you there? That means Akanksha has not turned up.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So thank you to all presenters. This was all. So in this session, there were 4 papers presented. I'd like to give a quick feedback before we take up any question if it is there any. Let's start with Parvati. Should I? Shafin ma'am. Should I
Yes.
give my quick feedback before we take
Yes,
questions? In the
yes, yes.
meantime, the other participants, if you have any question, you can, you can write your questions. Parvati, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm there.
Okay, okay. So our topic was gender identity and performativity in Pramod Raman's work. You see, the text is really confusing because of lots of gender transformation.
Yes,
So, okay, instead of finding out the theme and all, I would suggest that you can also think of, like, when you do some research, you think of how that is linked to the modern society. Many similar things may be happening either in our country or maybe throughout the world. You can check up with the, current applications over there and how it's impacting the real life. Then maybe you can also simplify the theme and its relevance to society. So that is just one suggestion. You try to find out similarities, or if any similar kind of things are happening in and around our country or in the world, maybe
Yes.
application to real life. Matusha, she was talking of epics, and she compared Mahabharata and Iliad. And while comparing, she compared Achilles, and a lot of comparison is made to Karna. What I Matsa, yeah, she is there. Karna, you compared Achilles to Karna, but I think the most appropriate character who the Achilles can be compared to is Duryodhana. You know, these, if you think of weakness wise, Achilles has a weakness in his legs, and he was, killed by an arrow that pierced through his legs. And Duryodhana had, weakness, near, under his belly, where he was like finally killed. Because of that, he went to see his mother, and his mother, he was trapped not to see. He was trapped by Krishna not to cover that part. Like Achilles' mother covered his leg, so even Duryodhana covered his central part and could not reveal his sexual organs to his mother, and that way that remained to be his the weakness. So if you compare them, I hope you might have done that somewhere, but then that is the most
Sir, in my
suitable
research,
character.
I've done that, sir. In my research, I've done that.
But then when you speak, that should come out, because direct comparison is from Achilles, between Achilles and Duryodhana, and not Achilles and Karna. So that when you speak this thing, we should also be able to find that what your paper has the most important comparisons. So that would be better. Thank you. She says that she has there in the main paper. And I'd move to Benedicta. She was thinking of, she was talking of Frozen, and she talked of how folklore and gender is revealed in Frozen. And she talked of the independence and equality of the two central characters of the two movies, Frozen and Frozen 2, these two movies, and the song "Concealing Your True Self and Let It Go," and how in that, through these two movies, she could see the psychological study of these characters, how these characters do fight against the norms of society, and finally they bring up their independence, and they try to prove the equality with the other gender. So good. You can also see the similarity in society, as I was saying. And then the last, Sarita Samuel's development of feminism. It was most of a historical kind of a study. You studied the main
Sir.
historical development in feminism. It
Yes,
was
sir.
historical criticism. You can also go for like slightly go to most recent things, although it was
Oh.
textual, mostly text based. You took the
Yes.
major writers of English literature. Maybe you can
Yes.
think of Indian context as well, and just to add one or two Indian writers who have been
Okay.
great feminists in Indian English literature. So that would be
Sure.
like maybe Kamala Das or some other writer you can think of,
Yes.
where you have direct feminism coming up. So that way you can also link Western world to our Indian context, and paper can be more relevant.
Okay.
Maybe adding one Indian writer will also be a good
Sure.
kind of inclusion.
Yes.
Apart from these individual feedbacks, I've got some common feedbacks on that. I think when you do some research, though we are dealing with, I said in the beginning, I am more of a language person, so I'll certainly judge things from language point of view as well. When you do some kind of research, instead of just theme-based or historical research, if we can try to think of the problems that is there associated with the work and how that can be linked to society, so there should be some variables, some problems, and then you can have the comparison and some finding, some application to society. That is very required. Just a theme based study, just limiting yourself to do the research, just searching the text, looking for the text and doing the textual study, rather finding out the problems that is there in the text, comparing the text, bringing it to society, linking it to society, and then revealing your findings to society can be of some use to society, because research will have no value unless it has applicability or somehow it is linked to society. So how it is relevant and how it is contributing to the literature field or to the society at large, that should be there's a social applicability is one thing that I suggest students of literature should also start thinking now, how moving ahead from just textual and historical criticism to applicability or criticism that is somehow can be relevant for society's purpose as well. One more thing that is there in PowerPoint, I just found that when you write, prepare some PowerPoints, don't write it for yourself. If you write put a lot of text and on a small screen, you will not be able to see that. So don't write more than 70 to 80 words per slide. Even if you write it, distribute it so that others should be able to see it and read it. Two of the PowerPoints that we could see, it was just for you. It was not for the viewers. So maybe suggestion to you as well, try to limit the PowerPoint's text per slide to maybe maximum 70, 80 or 100 words per slide, not more than that. If you can use infographics, that will be more appealing to the viewers as well. So with that, if you have any question, Shafin ma'am, we can take some questions if there are none.
Yes. If anyone wants to ask any question to any participants, please ask. I think there is no question. So
yes, I don't think so. If you have any,
that they're good luck actually.
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we
so,
actually we have to
yes,
actually
ma'am.
conclude because there is another session, and so I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Dr. Mahto for you chairing the session and also for giving feedback to the presenters, and especially about the PPT, how to make it and how to present it. And also, I hope that these feedbacks will be very helpful for them. Thank you again for continuing the session so well. And thank you. Then
I'd like to thank you, Shafin ma'am. Abhimanyu ji is there, Shubhra ma'am is there, and Rezin is there. I joined yesterday, so I'm familiar with some of the faces now. So thank you very much for providing me opportunity to chair this session, and looking forward for similar opportunities, and we'll work together. Thank you very much, and my best wishes to all the participants. Thank you.